had the Skyline, it's been 2 years, and I've always had a spongy brake pedal. I kind of thought putting all new brakes on here, new lines, new everything. I bled this thing 3 times, all the way back, forth, all the way around, every way I could, but I think it's actually the ABS. So I can't do the protocol to actually bleed the ABS system because I have a standalone ECU and the ABS system was tapped into prior to me even getting the car for something. I don't even know why. So the ABS doesn't even work on the car. So I'm going to be removing that today. Something I didn't want to do. I was trying to find a way to fix it and keep ABS in the car, but today I'll be removing that. So, you know, it doesn't look like it's that hard of a job. And hopefully by the end of the time when I get this all out of here, I have a nice firm brake pedal, which is kind of nice to have. The first step for doing this is actually to drain the fluid out of here. You could suck it out, but I'm being lazy and letting gravity do the work. So I busted the middle or the rear brake line, and you can see it's still dripping down into here. And I did the same thing on the passenger front to get all the front brake fluid out. I popped this open and let all the fluid drain out of there. So those are the first steps. And then after that, you've got to bust the lines on the brake master cylinder right there. So those 2 lines, loosen those, and then loosen this line here and disconnect that line. So I'm gonna let the rest of that rear drip out, which it's almost done. And then I'm gonna take those 2 lines off of there, take that line off of there, and then remove the ABS itself. It's got some connectors in the back, so you gotta remove those connectors. Hopefully they're not too beat up, but I'm pretty sure they're gonna be a pain in the butt to remove. But let's get to removing this ABS block. Well, and the first thing I had to do totally different than they did was this. On their video on GKTech, you only have to remove this line. But for me, because I have all types of stuff that went over the ABS module, I had to remove these 2 lines here, and then there's 2 lines on top. It's 4 hard lines that were gonna have to be removed anyways, but from that, oh, and there's also a ground over here they don't tell you about. And then these 3 connectors, which are here, which I was worried about, which are a pain in the ass. They're kind of brittle and falling apart. But I don't care about them because they're coming out of the car anyways. But now the ABS module is disconnected and should be able to. Can I do it one-handed? I don't know if I'll be able to do it. Maybe. Haha. ABS module out of the car. So yeah, complete. So now I've got all types of room for activities over here. I've got to remove this bracket and then all these other lines, which go all the way back to the other side. But yeah, gonna remove that today, and guess I can replug in my windshield washer module. But anyways, everything's out of the car now. I'm gonna have to find a way to retie these down to something because they used to tie to the ABS module, and I don't want them hanging around like that, but I'll figure that out. All right, so this install, just like all other ones, is giving me some problems. All the installs, at least for the R34 I've seen online, I've had the engine removed from the engine bay, which makes this install just a little bit easier. But even then, they kind of route the wires. They never show where they attach the T-fitting, which is the problem I'm having right now. I have seen one S13 with the caliper or the master cylinder over there. They also had their intake manifold and some other stuff off the engine block, and they attached the T-fitting to the side of the wheel well. My problem right now is this. So let's see if I can find this one-handed. Where's that thing at? There you go. So this right here, if you can see it, this is the line that comes from here. So if you see that line right there, so that goes from there to that caliper attachment, the hard line old spot, over to what's supposed to be this T-fitting here. So I like that location for the T-fitting, but this line is only 11 inches and will not reach that T-fitting. I'll try to show it from the bottom, but the only other thing I can do with this line is maybe attach it here and blind drill a hole through the wheel well. So there's a marker there. So there's this little plastic thing. I can drill a hole below that and then try to attach the T-fitting there. But then I have to do that with no space because the intake manifold's in the way. So I think I found another way of doing this. I'll show that, but first let me show you what it looks like on the bottom so you can get an idea of the problem. All right, so trying to do this video from the bottom. So this is where I bought up my T-fitting. So right there, so you can see that nice little T-fitting there. It is nicely mounted to here. We have the fuel lines coming from the rear, and then there's this bracket here, and it's mounted there with a spacer. So I really like that location. It's actually pretty good, other than the fact that I can't reach it with that one line. But here, back here is where GKTech has you attach the rear line to, and then that goes back to distribute the rear brakes. The only problem with this fitting location is if I can reach that line that I was working with a second ago and route it around this line, you'll see that even with this routed around here, there's nothing I can do to try to get this line here. So it just doesn't reach. That 11 inches is too small. So unfortunately, that's the main problem with this install location. Even if I tried to move it further over this way, which it looks like GKTech has theirs installed like here, it still won't reach. Like this thing is just too short to reach all the way over here. And then the problem with this also is even with that there, this line, the long line, is too short to reach all the way over. So it seems like the long line does want the install point here. And then this needs to come over here, which the top line from the master cylinder would allow it all the way over here. But I'll show you what my solution is for all of this in a second. So here's my dilemma. As I showed you, this 11-inch line is too short, but I do have this 23-inch line from GKTech. So when I reached out to GKTech last night, they were really quick to respond. I had a response in the morning. As you know, they're in Australia. In the morning, they did tell me that just move my T-fitting. But as I showed you, moving my T-fitting is a problem with my engine in the engine bay. This 23-inch line is from them, and this is for the clutch dampener delete kit. I've had this for over a year. I just haven't installed it yet, but which comes in handy now because when I reached back out to them explaining it would be hard to move the T-fitting, they did point me in the direction of these longer lines. So the only problem with this is this longer line, or this shorter line, has this nice little L bracket that points over towards the hole. This one is straight, but with it being 23 inches, it's okay because I can get a decent bend in it and not have it touch anything. And then I'll put some protection here just in case it does touch anything so it doesn't cause any issues. The other thing with that 23-inch line is I could move that T-fitting further back as I showed, so it does connect to this longer line here. But the only problem is if I keep the longer line where it is right now, there's not a whole lot of connection points that I can get to that. And then if you look over here, that longer line right now is right near the exhaust, which I don't like. Don't want all that heat getting to my brake fluid. So what I'm actually going to do is right now I do have the longer line attached here to that attachment, but I'm going to attach the 11-inch line right there to that. Have that 11-inch line coming in here, and it reaches to about right here. I'm have that 11-inch line connect here with a union, and then from that union it connect to the long line. And then the long line can run around here, stay far, far away from the exhaust, and then run up here across this member and have a lot of attachment points. As GKTech said in their video, more attachment points, the better, because that will get you, so this line isn't flexing around when you press the brake pedal. The less this moves, the more firm the brake pedal will be. And then on top of that, it's going to be easy for me if I want to attach that union, you know, if I want to make a little bracket here, because I have all types of space on this side now with the ABS removed for activities. So I can make a little bracket here or whatever I want to do. I can just zip tie it here. There's all different things I can do over here. But overall, that's going to be a great routing for this to be able to attach that long line and have more attachment points. The only issue is I'm now adding about an extra 2 feet of line to this whole install, which kind of sucks. But maybe when I remove the engine to paint the engine bay, I'll use the hard lines or make new hard lines or do something better. But at least now this will get me back on the road. I can see how I like it for the next couple of months. And then later, maybe if I don't like it, I can change some things. All right, finally completed the install. One thing I did want to show everybody is that this front one is actually for the rear brakes. This one is for the front brakes. And this one moves straight to that T-fitting where I showed y'all it's down there on the frame. And then to get it there, I did have to use the 23-inch line here on this side of the engine. So that's the GKTech clutch dampener delete kit that gives you the 23-inch line that has the right fittings on both sides to be able to extend that to where the T-fitting is down there on the frame. And then that gave me the extra length to put this cable, and you can see all the connection points in the back firewall. Yes, I painted the firewall black. I'm painting the whole engine bay in the next couple months, so I don't really care, but I didn't want bare metal back there at all, even though it'd only be a couple months. But that gave me this area here where this is really nice and snug, so that barely moves. The thing that sucks is even with that extra, I couldn't get this along the firewall over here or anything. So there is some flex in the line here, but I couldn't do anything with that to make that tighter. And then the other thing I did want to show y'all is this. So with this line over here, I have a clamp over here holding that the union of where the 11-inch line connects to the longer line that goes all the way across. So with that union in there and that clamp, I can't move this. That's actually really snug. So that gives me some rigidity there. So overall, the install was good, but anybody on a R34 doing an install with the engine in the bay, 23-inch line on that side is the GKTech clutch dampener delete kit. Has the M10x1 male-in connectors that connect into everything on your brake system, and then move the 11-inch line that came for this kit over to that side so you have the extra for the longer line to connect to the back firewall. But I mean, overall, the kit is installed. I just wish I'd have known that it was too short. Luckily, I had that extra 23-inch line sitting at the house. But for anybody else doing the install, just buy the extra line. It's like 30 bucks or something before you do the install, and it'll make this very easy. So I'm bleeding the front, and you can actually see the little air bubbles coming out right now. Hopefully you can see that. I don't know if it's actually zooming on it right, but there's a lot of air bubbles coming out because I bled the whole front side. But the greatness of what I'm doing is I've got a power bleeder, so I can just let all those air bubbles come out. I don't got to worry about somebody in there pumping and doing all that. I just got to keep pressure in here. Keep the pressure, I usually keep it above 10. So just pump some pressure in there and just wait for all the air bubbles to come out. So eventually all these air bubbles will be gone, and then, you know, this will be done. But get yourself an air bleeder, a power bleeder. It makes things much, much easier. And then when you do this, just wrap this around here and have it hang. I've always tried to figure out what the hell to do with this, but now just wrap it around the lugs and let it hang. It kind of helps and makes everything easy. But yeah, power bleeder, get one. Makes things a lot easier. I think they're like 80 or 90 bucks. It's a nice little upgrade. Get one.